coming from kind of a tech space, we have a lot of
Mm,
neurodivergence in our community. So, what kindness will look like in action to some people will look very different to others. That feedback, the way that it's worded to one person will be received in a very understanding and welcome way, whereas another person will feel attacked by it regardless of how the approach is. So I think um, having broad strokes is kind of a great approach to company culture in that sense, but having the markers for, okay, this is the aspirational point. This is kind of our approach as a company. Individually, it may differ a little here or there.
yeah, totally. I totally agree. Since you brought up neurodivergence, um, you know that I always laugh at this too when companies are like, "We want the best and brightest at our company." It's like, well, no company is saying like we want the dullest and the worst. Like no one's like,
Right.
but
Right.
so if we think about neurodivergence, and also since we're talking about like remote working as well, like from an HR perspective specifically, traditionally we think if we're saying the best and brightest and we weren't accommodating neurodivergence or marginalized communities or people who needed to work remotely, we weren't really pulling from the best and brightest. We were pulling from the best of brightest from a teeny slice of the population. So now that there's so much more conversation about like different kinds of accommodations that we could have and different ways of working, we're able to pull from like a larger, much larger population and the best of brightest for that. So it seems like we've got the opportunity to get way more people that are like ultra talented. On the flip side, businesses could sometimes look at accommodations as being like too much of a pain in the ass. So, and like don't want to like handle it and are like, oh, everyone's being a baby about stuff. So from your perspective, like what's the way that we can continue to kind of like grow that population and convince businesses that it's actually worth the effort to do that?
I think during the pandemic, the one bright spot as far as businesses are concerned and work is concerned, I think that moving to fully remote was the way to ensure that neurodivergent folks have the tools that they need to be successful. When you're in your home, you already have yourself set up in a way that you're most comfortable, most productive, most centered, right? You bring your best self to work. You are the most productive that you can be. You don't have to worry about, I mean, I can only speak for myself.
Mhm.
I am neurodivergent. I have a hard time sometimes leaving the house. This has been long-term, lifelong issue. The idea of hopping in my car and dealing with traffic in Los Angeles to get to an office location, then all of the initial interactions that I have to have with people, the small talk, the niceties, the smells, honestly, of the office, just facing that every morning when I wake up, it is a real barrier for me.
Mhm.
Knowing that I can wake up in the morning, have the time for myself to really mentally prepare for my day, make sure that my desk is organized in a certain way, my house smells a certain way, that, I can go pet a cat if I have to, if I'm having a moment. That all is invaluable to my work experience. So, I think being flexible with work environments is the key to ensure that you're getting the best and brightest.
Totally. First of all, thank you for sharing that. That is like so cool that you would open up like that. And also like, yeah, like I just want to work with people who are like into it. Like they want to do it and they're really good at figuring it out. So I want to be able to pull from the widest range of people if possible. Because like someone who's in this like teeny little sliver, it's really hard to find someone who can like play in all the different kinds of levels. Where if you're like pulling from a much bigger population, there's a lot more people that you can find, a lot more interesting people. But it's not some industries kind of have played like that, but a lot of industries have really pulled from like just these teeny little slivers of the population. Although it does seem to have changed considerably, and I do think that's like one of the good things that's come from the pandemic.
Absolutely, and when you pull from such a big population, I mean, I just think about my team. There's 3 of us on my particular North American team, in people services, and it's myself, I'm seated in Los Angeles. Um, the people services assistant is seated in Austin, Texas, and the people services advisor is seated in Atlanta, Georgia. We bring 3 very different life experiences to the table. Culturally, we bring 3 very different cultures to the table. And with those difference of cultures and experiences, you can really make something great. It's like it's the difference between making a recipe with a very homogenized set of ingredients,
Mhm.
right? You're like, you can't just bake a cake with flour.
Yeah.
You need sugar, you need chocolate maybe, you need butter, you need all of the things that make a cake a cake. And I think it's really close-minded of businesses when they go, well, we just want to hire at this one particular office in this one particular city in this one particular region because you may not be getting that diversity that makes the best cake.
Yeah. Um, can I make a band analogy here?
Absolutely.
Uh,
I don't know why I said cake, I'm not a baker.
well, like especially because like, and again for the people listening who don't know Laura or myself or both of us, um, we both come from like the music scene, like the kind of the punk scene. Um, a band full of really good musicians doesn't necessarily mean it's a good band. Like you pulling from a broader range could be like, well, listen, maybe our bass player absolutely sucks and just picked up a bass for the first time, but they're incredible style. They understand the genre, great stage presence. They're just a cool person, like really great person. They've got a great attitude. Like what I loved about punk is like your ability to play the instrument is not even in the initial equation of whether or not this person should be in the band. It's like that's like a bonus, an added bonus. And that's like pulling from the best and brightest. I think in so many ways, like there's just classic bands that have people who started off barely able to play their instrument. And when I think now of like, um, think about like, hey, we want someone in this region, and it's like, well, that's kind of like saying you want a total guitar shredder, but they like can't write a song. Like, who cares? Why even bother? Like, getting people who are in it, who are creative, who are like super willing to try different things, who can look at things different ways, who have different life perspectives. Um, I think it's such a cooler thing for businesses, and that's is one of the things remote work has opened up.